This Ways and Means Subcommittee meeting will now come to order. Will all please rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Roll call of the members of the Ways and Means Subcommittee. Councilor Guanasso is absent. Councilor Morabito? Here. Councilor Patch?
Here.
Here. Councilor Rotundo is absent. And Chairman Rizzo?
Here.
Here. Quorum is present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have a very full agenda for the Ways and Means Subcommittee. I had planned on addressing these loan orders with CDM Smith first, but now I see department heads in the audience, which I hadn't anticipated. So rather than keep them waiting, I'll take the budget up first, and we'll go through it. As I had discussed early on, each department head came up and went through their figures and went through the numbers, and then the members of the City Council had a chance to digest all these numbers and look through them and think about any proposed cuts that they would like to make and put before the City Council. I had told everybody at that time that that would not be done during the presentation from the respective department heads, that we would do it tonight, which is what we plan on doing. And I'm just going to take it, unless there's any objection, I'm going to take it page by page and just go right through the budget. And as we go through the pages, if we could all turn to section 2, as we go through the pages, if any councilors have any cuts that they would like to propose, please let me know, and I will make note of them. Okay, is that agreeable with everybody? Okay. So we could all turn to page 1, and I'm going to move through these real quickly because there's an awful lot of pages here. We've got about 135, 140 pages, so I'm going to move through them real quickly. A lot of them will just be ones we can just sail right through, but, you know, stop me, of course, if any of you have any recommendations. So we'll start with section 2, page 1, City Council. We move on to page 2, page 3, expenses. Any cuts to the City Council budget? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on. Mayor's office, page 4. We'll move on to page 5, the breakdown of all the positions. Expenses on page 6. Any cuts proposed to the mayor's budget on page 6? Page 7, Regional School Committee. Page 8, Representative to the VOC. Page 9, Other Charges and Expenses. I don't think there's anything anyone has there, right? Human Resources Department. Any changes, any modifications members want to propose? Okay. I will be making a proposal to cut in the group health benefits, which is no longer in the Human Resources Department. So I will make a proposal at the end of when we get through all this. But that previously had been in the Human Resources budget. Well, right now they've moved group health insurance out of Human Resources, and I think it's in, can you, where is it, Rick?
So you're not cutting it, you're just making the transition.
No, I'm cutting the group health, but, and I'll explain my reasoning behind it when I get there.
It's on page 133.
Okay.
133 is the summary?
Yeah, so, you know, like that'll be on page 133. We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay. Moving along, page 11. Page 12. Any cuts? These are, I just have I just have one question pertaining to employee training. What is involved? You know, in $25,000, I know $50,000 was requested, $25,000 was approved. What type of training is done with, for $25,000?
This is anything from customer service to Excel training, Word training.
So this would be
Microsoft
for
Outlook.
employee training?
Yeah, it would be for.
Okay, not within that department
No,
alone?
it's,
Okay,
it's consolidated for professional development within the,
Okay.
the city, yes.
okay. So page 12, everybody okay with that? Page 13, Office of Innovation and Data Management. Any changes, cuts, questions? Page 14. Page 15. We'll move on to auditing, page 16. Any questions from councilors on page 16? Page 17? Page 18, under expenses, any proposed cuts? Page 19, purchasing. 20, just salaries, expenses, postage, page 21. Hearing no cuts, we'll move on. Page 22. Any changes under information technology? Changes under information technology, anybody? Rick, I have a question, or if Glenn's here, I don't know. I think we discussed this in the subcommittee, but this capital outlay in FY '18 of $939,700, it's on page 22. It looks like it's been moved up or consolidated somehow with computer contracted services. Where is, something's not, because it's not being funded here, the capital outlay, but we've gone from an appropriation in '18 of $382,000 up to $941,000.
The appropriation from last year was for the implementation of going to the cloud on all of our servers, and now going from fiscal year 19 on at the operating costs of handling that business, and Glenn can certainly elaborate more to that, but it was the fixed cost of implementing, and now the continuing cost year to year to maintain it.
Okay. Okay. As we move through your department, you know, feel free to leave if you want. I don't want to keep you guys here any longer than you have to be. So we're on information technology, page 22, page 23, page 24, under expenses, non-payroll expenditures. Anybody have any proposed cuts in that section? Page 25. Okay. Page 26, assessors. Any questions pertaining to the assessors? Okay. Page 27, non-payroll expenditures on page 28. Okay, moving on, Director of Finance, Collector Treasurer. Any questions there? Page 30. 31. On page 31, Rick, you've moved a lot of these tax, title, banking services, and notes. Has that been moved somewhere? Where has that been moved to?
For tax title, there is a council order. I believe that's going to be addressed here for some free cash to fund the tax title revolving account, and then those fees would then fund the services. So that would be contemplated, I think, as a matter of business later on. So we don't have to fund it in the particular operating budget if the council order is approved from free cash. And notes and bonds, there are laws that allow you to pay costs of issuing notes and bonds through bond premiums, which is through Mass General Law. So for your rating call, your financial advisor, the bond counsel, et cetera, those costs can be absorbed through the actual...
Through the
bond-
note itself?
Through the note itself, through a bond premium. So we've removed that from the budget as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions on that? Page 32, Solicitor's Office. Any questions there? No questions there? Okay. Page 33. Non-payroll expenditures in the Solicitor's Office. Okay, moving on, page 35, the City Clerk's Office. Any questions, comments, cuts proposed for the City Clerk's Office? 36, 37. Moving on to the Election Commission, page 38. Any questions pertaining to page 38? Page 39. I do have a question under page 39 that wasn't clarified for me, and that was other salaries. I can see poll workers, board members, custodial services. What falls under other salaries? Just
DPW workers on site.
okay.
Set up and break down polling locations.
Okay.
It's usually the day before, they set everything up. The day of, you deliver all the ballots, and they help at the end of the night to collect the ballot boxes and tabulators. And then on Wednesday, they break everything down.
Okay. And that's for, okay, so that would involve,
They also assist on the last day to register to vote. The ballot test, they assist with that. Lifting, they help us sometimes with the tabulators.
okay. Thank you very much, Diane.
You're welcome.
Page 40. Non-payroll expenditures, page 40. Moving on, License Commission, page 41, pretty straightforward. 42, 43, Conservation Commission. Any questions? Page 45, 45, 46. Zoning Board of Appeals, page 47, page 48, page 49, all very self-explanatory. Page 50, Office of Strategic Planning and Economic Development. Any counselors? Page 51. Rich, this isn't necessarily a cut. Anyone have questions on page 51? This isn't necessarily a cut, but I was thinking about this as I was going through the budget myself over the weekend. And I know you would, maybe it's just a difference in philosophies. You had said that these part-time salaries from people that have come back either as retirees or whatever, and I had agreed that I think, there's a lot of benefit there, but you're not counting them in any capacity as an FTE, which I think they should be, shouldn't they?
The way I've always handled the budget, I use FTEs as a way to measure benefit-eligible employees. So when I'm measuring costs of adding new FTEs, I take in consideration the retirement and health insurance and those types of fringe benefits. So again, I think it's maybe a matter of style, but the way I like to present the budget and the way I like to try to manage the costs and forecast out is to keep part-timers out of FTE because strictly salary is what carries them forward. There's no other costs. So again, that's the way I've always done the budget. I think it's a better way to manage and forecast, but again, open to suggestions and considerations on how best to do it. I just think it skews the numbers a little bit, and I think it's trying to compare apples to apples with FTEs across the board. That's just the way I've historically done it, Council.
Yeah, my only thing is that whether or not, I mean, you might have an employee that is listed here as one of these funded positions that doesn't take health insurance. You don't even have to be mandatory. I don't think you need to even be in the retirement system if you don't want to be, I don't think.
No, it's by law, they have to be in the retirement system,
they? Okay.
or they self-contribute to the OBRA plan. But, yeah, it's certainly, single plan, family plan, or no plan. I take an average, I kind of look at how many FTEs we have, I divide it by the cost of health insurance, and I've come up with some numbers just to try to keep it in perspective. So again, it's just the way
Okay.
I've done it, but like I said, we're happy to look at it, maybe try to present it a different way so we're not, there's no intent to mislead or anything, it's just a style.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, page 52. Any questions there? 53, engineering. Any questions on page 53? Council McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Nick alluded that he needed extra staffing. Is that right, Nick? Were you looking for a part-time position? 2?
Are you referencing the 50,000 that's in there? Is
Yes.
that so that is, I'm looking for a full-time staff member
Full-time staff
on
member.
the engineering end of things. The 50 that's in there is sort of in lieu of that. We've had some difficulty finding qualified personnel.
Sure.
And so that's really more of a, to help along the way until I'm able to find somebody that's qualified that can be a full-time.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that that would be considered for him.
Considered for a cut?
No, considered to add a full-time position to his budget.
Okay, well, they're already budgeting for it,
Okay.
so.
Oh, well,
But it's funny that you would bring that particular item up, because as busy as I think Nick is, we're creating, we've got 19 new positions in this budget that are non-school related, 65 new positions. And out of the 65, 19 of them are on the general government side. And, I don't really know what to say about that. If the mayor and the auditor think we've got money to fund those type of positions, I'm not here to delay government, but at the same time, it's an awful lot of positions. I was actually looking at that position, Nick, in all honesty, given the extra bodies in the Public Works Department, the separating of the water and sewer, you've got, that's $50,000 that maybe could go somewhere else. That was going to be my feeling. So I don't know. I don't want to be a contrarian here.
no,
Councilman
that's fine.
McKenna,
But you're losing a person. Are you losing a person in your department?
So the department is short to start, but I believe that is the case.
Well, there's still funding. I still see Don Chermella
Danny,
in your budget. Councilor.
Oh, I was actually just going to bring that up. Your project manager, isn't he leaving?
So I don't know if that's a question for me to answer.
Well, I mean, is that salary going to go to water department, or is it going to stay here in
No, the
engineering?
position, the project manager position would remain in engineering, and at that time, I would expect to have to find someone to fill that position.
If I
So I
can-
think what we're talking about is really two new positions. One is taking another job over in the water sewer
Not new.
department.
Right.
And so, to fund two new positions there, I was going to propose cutting the principal clerk's job, but,
Just, if I may, there's really no new position for fiscal year 19 budget, because fiscal year 18 budget did have a superintendent of water and sewer built into the budget, and we still have both positions budgeted. So if there were people that got promoted or moved, the slots would still remain to backfill those positions. So both positions existed in fiscal year 18, and they still exist in fiscal year 19. But again, how those positions play out through the hiring process, it would be remain to be seen. But both positions need to be funded.
The position in the water department's new.
Well, it was funded-
19. It wasn't budgeted for 18.
There was a superintendent position budgeted in fiscal year 18 in the water and so, yes, sir.
And who was the superintendent?
I don't think it was filled, but it was budgeted, so it's not a new position. It was budgeted in the
Who
fiscal
was
year
the
18.
superintendent this year in the water department?
I don't believe that
It
position.
wasn't, we weren't budgeted for one either.
It was budgeted in 18, and it's budgeted again in 19, Counselor.
Well, I believe Joe Maggs was the head of the water department last year, and the superintendent was Donnie Goodwin for the whole DBW. Is that correct?
I'm not saying there was a particular person that served that role. I'm just saying that that position for superintendent was budgeted in 18, and it remains budgeted in 19. So it's not new per se. It may have been unfilled in fiscal year 18, but we didn't create the new position for fiscal year 19. We just have that available. Then I believe the hope is to actually have that filled very, very soon.
Okay, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Any other councilors have questions? Council Morbido?
I just want to make a statement, if you'll allow me to.
Good.
I just think right now we have Nick Rystrom up there. He's saying he needs a position. I can understand my colleague's point. She figured he was going to be down a staff, and she wanted to make a recommendation to the mayor for $50,000 to add a staff member for him. At this point, there's so much going on, so many projects going on. I don't think we should cut from his budget at this point in time. I think, well, we don't have the authority to cut, but I don't think we should make a recommendation to cut from his department because he's very slim.
Point of
at the
information,
point.
we have, that's all we can do is cut. We can't add.
Well, we can't cut at all. We can make a recommendation for the mayor to cut. You're the former mayor. You could probably answer that.
Well, we can absolutely cut. We can cut? Yeah, absolutely, we can cut.
Make a recommendation.
No, we can cut, he can override, and if he overrides, I believe that we'll need 8 votes to sustain the cut, but, you know,
No, I wouldn't
that's really,
recommend a cut.
that's really, in all honesty, even when I was the mayor, I always viewed this council as, really, probably one of our biggest duties, I would say, would be budget oversight, because there's not much more we can do on a day-to-day basis. So it's this time of year that we want to make sure that money is being spent appropriately and that we're maximizing every tax dollar that we can. And, but at the end of the day, everybody's got one vote. So, whatever you think makes sense is okay with me. I can only extend my opinions to what I think. And Nick, I think in this case where Donnie's going to be moving, you're going to be bringing someone else in. We have we have 19 new positions. I mean, it's. I'm not saying that every department could probably use more people. And believe me, we've taken a good hard look at this, but. We'll move on and we'll get to that point. At the end of this, we'll propose whatever cuts that we want to make, and we'll take votes on them.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we absolutely can cut. When I was chairman of Ways and Means, we cut an assistant plumbing inspector, if you remember.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
but as far as Donnie Tremella goes, I think he's doing an excellent job. He adds an awful lot to the city in whatever capacity he is working. And I would say that that's certainly one position we don't want to cut.
Mr. Chairman,
point of
point of
information,
information, I do recall now that we have made cuts in the past.
Right. No problem.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a point of information on what Councilor Powers just said.
Councilor Patch.
I'm not questioning, I think he does a great job myself, but I'm just questioning the salary being in 2 different departments here. And I just, as far as his work, he's a great engineer, if you ask me. You know, he's never worked in the water department, but he's a great, but I just, I'm questioning the salary being in two spots. I don't,
Right.
You got one guy, and you got two spots.
Well, to follow up on your point, Counselor, we're not even talking about Donnie Chiaramella. Donnie Chiaramella, he's budgeted in two places right now. So we're not talking about that at all. We're talking about a new proposed principal clerk's position, above and beyond Don's position, above and beyond the engineer's position. This is a new position that, Nick has said, I really haven't been able to fill it. And so, it's a $50,000 expenditure that if the city doesn't have to make, I mean, we were just told now by Rich that we budgeted a superintendent's job. I'm not even sure how much that was last year, and we didn't fill that. So what are we doing? I think we're putting an unnecessary burden on the taxpayer by doing that, to be honest with you. Council President Janino?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point of information. If I am understanding this correctly, if a person is, you're funding a position, you're not funding a person. So there are two salaries budgeted in two places for two positions. It doesn't necessarily mean that one person gets both salaries.
Right.
So if person A is in position A and person B is in position B, if person B retires and person A assumes their role, they don't collect both salaries.
Right.
It's just in the budget for that position, not that person. So I feel like some of the things that are coming across might be misleading to people thinking that we're paying someone for the same job twice, which is not the case. When you vote on a budget, you allocate positions in the budget and account for a salary to pay the positions in the budget. So just a quick clarification, because I think it got confusing with all the back and forth. In regards to this additional position, we are understaffed as a city, and I do agree to that point, but if they're going to be in a situation where they could have a possible new person in the department, I think they're going to need all hands on deck. I think you're losing a very experienced role. You're going to have potentially a new person in that role, so I think you're going to need all the assistance you can get, because you're going to be losing that expertise and that someone with that history in that position. So I would hate to see it go, but that's just my opinion.
That's okay. Well, I don't have any further questions, Nick. I think we all understand the situation and we'll see where it goes when we work through the final budget.
Mr. Chairman, can I just clarify? So I think there is still a little bit of confusion. The project manager's position, which is currently filled by Don Chiaramella, that position exists already. We're not talking about that one changing at all. The principal clerk's position also is not related to the 50,000 that's in there. The 50,000 is for on-call engineering services in lieu of being able to find a staff engineer. It's not related to either of those other two positions.
Well, it's not funded that way, Nick. It's funded as an employee, which comes with retirement, which comes with benefits, that's how it's listed as an employee there. It's not listed as contracted services. And
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but maybe I can help clarify, I hope anyhow. The principal clerk position is a new position to the engineering department, but it's a transfer from the water and sewer, so that position isn't new. It's just because of efficiencies in the meter reading and such, we've eliminated one position from the water and sewer for clerical, and we're giving Nick a water and sewer, an engineering clerical person to help him with administrative work. The other position that wasn't able to be filled last year, for whatever reason, it was decided that because it was difficult to fill that position, we took it out of Nick's budget, and we're proposing to use contracted services instead. So last year, you'd see that 3 positions were budgeted, but there wasn't a clerical position. There was 3 professionals, but the new budget actually has 2 professionals and a clerical that was a lateral transfer. And what we're trying to do is backfill, in lieu of hiring another new FTE, we're trying to use contracted services to fill that gap.
So I'm hearing that for the first time. Now, there's no footnotes that explain that.
On the
There's
principal clerk, there's a footnote, but the
there's
other part, Page 54, there's a footnote that explains.
On page where?
On page 54, that explains the principal clerk. But I think that the
Okay.
principal clerk was being confused with the other position, so I was just trying to explain that. Basically, by eliminating one of the engineer positions, we backfilled it with a principal clerk, and we're just proposing that we have some professional contractor services funded to help with engineering services where we weren't able to hire another engineer for Nick's department. So if you actually look at the FTE count, it's the same from fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 19, and really kind of the new money would be that contracted services, because the principal clerk kind of slotted in where that engineer was in fiscal year 18.
Okay. All right, any other questions on page 54? Thank you, Nick. Page 55, any questions? Page 56? Any questions pertaining to the police department's budget? Page 57? Page 58? Moving along, page 60, non-payroll expenditures. Any proposed cuts, non-payroll expenditures, any councilors? Page 61. Page 62. That'll do it for the police. Any proposed cuts at all? Okay, moving on, the fire department. Page 63. Page 64. Non-payroll expenditures, page 66. Page 67, 68. Any questions pertaining to the fire department's budget? Proposed cuts? Okay. Moving on, Regional Emergency Communication Center. Any questions or comments on that? Page 70. No questions on the rec center? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Patch?
on the Regional Communication Center, I just want to put it out there that we, when they were before us, there were several questions about the, how much that salary increased from the old system to this system. And I just want people to know that there was some discussion about this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor. Page 71, Inspectional Services, Building Department. '72. Page 73, still under the Building Department, Building Division. Nothing. Page 74, Weights and Measures. Page 75, any councilors? Page 76, non-payroll expenditures, okay? Page 77, Parking Control. Any councilors have any questions on page 77? Any proposals?
Mr. Chairman,
Council Guanasso.
under parking control, I would like to see the mayor add a provision in there for resident parking. So I'd like to see that, some monies allocated for that to get that ongoing.
Talking about for residential sticker parking?
Absolutely.
Well, we can propose that, right? So we'll, Okay, any councilors have any follow-up to Councilor Guanasso's recommendation?
Just for a proposal of security cameras as well.
Security cameras in specific
In
places?
the, yeah, right where the residents pay for their tickets.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Powers?
I have one question with regard to Councilor Ganasso's proposal. What do we have out there at night? Because I think that many of your parking violations happen in the evening with commercial plates being parked out there where they shouldn't be, and cars parked on sidewalks and driveways and that type of thing. So I'm just curious as to what we have out there right now with regard, maybe these auditor can answer that question for me.
Currently, we have 3 full-time parking enforcement officers. 2 work during the day and 1 works overnight. We definitely have some gaps, so in the budget, you'll see a recommendation for a 4th officer that's
What I'm leading
meant to
up
fill
to.
those gaps.
Yeah,
So
that's
so
exactly
we're
what I'm
proposing a
leading up to.
4th to try to fill those gaps and have coverage 7 days a week.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Keefe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that position, and this is to the finance person, wouldn't those tickets be able to fund some of this, or would they create a revolving account in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the amount of tickets that are written by 3 enforcement officers now, this position should pay for itself and then some. But I don't think the goal is to write tickets so much as to just enforce the parking regulations, but it certainly should pay for itself and then some, council.
Understood.
excuse
And
me,
one other question, pardon me, Mr. Council Powers. In regards to Councilor Guanasso's request to have some funding towards residential sticker parking program, is that something, I mean, I know that we have the parking director here now. Is that something that we can realistically hope for in the coming year? That, I mean, this is something that's, I don't want to hold up the budget meetings on this, but this has been something we've been talking about for a few years now. That's been,
I would imagine that you'd have some kind of committee meeting to discuss a program, and then we can certainly implement whatever the wish of the body is.
we've already done that.
So then I would just need direction on how much we'd need, and we'd get funding from, the appropriate body here. So it's trying to catch up first. I'm hearing of it, but certainly listening, and let me know. We can talk offline and set it up for sure.
It'll be the first thing after the budget then.
You
Thank
got it.
Mr. Chairman, to clarify something, I'm not suggesting that we go out and write tickets to raise money or to penalize people. What I'm suggesting is that we have somebody out there that's enforcing our existing traffic regulations so that the people that live in those neighborhoods are not penalized. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor, thank you. Okay, moving on, page 79, non-payroll expenditures. Page 80. Page 81. Traffic Commission, nothing there. Moving on, page 82, administrative side of the Public Works Department. Councilors, anybody? Page 83, 84. Any questions on the administrative side of Public Works? Okay, Public Works, snow and ice. Anyone have any recommendations here? It's page 85, moving on, page 86. Page 87, Highway Division, Department of Public Works Highway Division. Okay, no questions there. Page 88, page 89. No close cuts there. Page 90, which is the Parks and Open Space. Any questions or proposals? Okay, we'll move on. Page 91. Page 92. No questions there. Moving on, sanitation, page 93. Any questions on page 93? Okay. That, on page 93, I'm sure everybody's aware of it, but that's been moved to a solid waste enterprise fund. So we'll get to that as we move along. Page 94. Page 95. Again, you'll note that that's been taken out. Page 95, page 96, facilities and public property. Page 97. Page 98. Any comments or questions from councilors? I have a question. Is Paul Argenzio here? Paul, I have a question pertaining to street lighting. That numbers remain flat, but I'm wondering if with the new lighting technologies and you know, do you have an actual number that we spent last fiscal year on street lighting?
Richard could probably provide that, but this number has been pretty flat. It's consistent. We have, only on the city-owned streetlight on Broadway and Shirley Avenue have we gone to LED. There's always been some talk with National Grid about going to LED for streetlights. That hasn't happened yet. So the only places we, like I say, we really have LEDs is with Broadway and Shirley Ave lighting. Those are the poles that we own.
Okay. So,
I don't have the historical data. I do have year-to-date budget report, which we do get rebates and they're netted against the appropriation. So we've actually, it looks like we've overspent for fiscal year 18 year-to-date, but again, we get checks back from the energy people and we apply it to the appropriation, but we're going to be fine with that particular budget. We do have some year-end transfer stuff on the agenda for tonight, but that number seems to be safe as a flat number right at this point.
okay. Any other councilors have questions on page 98? Page 99? Page 100, inspectional services.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on
Page
page
99?
99.
Councilor Powers.
I noticed that the department requested $150,000 for culvert cleaning.
Yes, we did make that recommendation, but in looking at last year's money that we spent, we didn't spend, after an analysis, we didn't spend quite as much, so we decided it was safe to cut $50,000.
It was cut $50,000, I can see that.
From our, yes.
But I guess the central question is, with regard to the Central County Ditch and the Eastern County Ditch, particularly the Eastern County Ditch, as you know, we're doing repairs to the catch basins, increasing the capacity of many of the lines
Yes.
on the east side of the city.
Mhm.
I'm just, and I think one of the major problems is right now, any person would agree, if you looked at the debris that's in the Eastern County Ditch, particularly down on, up the Bay Road area,
Yes.
or down in the Wonderland area, to just add catch basins and lateral lines, increase the capacities, you need a little more than that. You need to be cleaning that ditch. And I understand that's a
Positively.
major undertaking.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering where we are on that right now, because that's the area that I represent, and I'm very concerned about it, because when people see you putting in new lateral lines, new catch basins, they say, you know, oh, wow, this is great.
Right.
But it's not great unless we get to the Eastern County ditch.
Yes, there is funding mechanisms that are being put in place to address that. That does not come out of this particular account. That is going to, as you know, going to cost a staggering amount of money.
I understand
So
that.
that is not reflected in
I'm
this.
just wondering where that is right now.
We are in the process of sampling the sediment and the material in there to see what we're up against as far as if it's contaminated, non-contaminated. So we're in the sampling.
Can the residents anticipate that by late fall, we'll be in there doing some work, at least making a start?
If that funding is available and ready to roll, yes. But like I said,
Thank
the
you very
sampling should be done by then, and we'll see what we're up against. If it's contaminated, that may delay it a little bit.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Counsel. Any other councilors? Okay, moving on to Inspectional Services, the Health Inspection Division. Page 101. Just for the edification of anybody that might be watching this, a lot of this is contractual, as we all know, so that's why we're moving along so quickly. There's only so many things that the city council, unless we're going to start really cutting, like cutting positions, that's really, a lot of this stuff is through collective bargaining. So that's the reason we're able to move through a lot of this stuff so quickly. The rest is, things like office supplies and telecommunications and things like that. So, but there are, as I said earlier, 19 new positions just on the general government side of things this year. So you got to be aware of that. And, page 102.
Mr. Chairman, I noticed there's a travel allowance request was $18,000, and it was down to $16,200, an $800 difference there. Is there a reason for that, Nick? On the travel allowance. How many people does that satisfy? That's on, I'm sorry, that's on page 102.
Page 102, under travel allowance.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's two full-time.
I guess the central question was how much is the travel allowance for
Travel allowance, full-time inspectors get $300, and part-time inspectors, including me, get $150. Public health nurse is also part of that, gets a travel allowance also.
Yeah.
And she's,
She goes to different places
That's
in the
correct.
city.
Yes.
That's correct. That answers my question. Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other councilors? Public Health Initiatives, page 103. Page 104. Page 105. Healthy Community Initiatives, page 106. Any councilors? Page 107. Page 108. Page 109, Substance Use Initiatives. Page 110. Page 111, non-payroll expenditures. Page 112, Elder Affairs. Page 113. Page 114. Page 115, Veterans Affairs. Page 116. Page 117. Commission on Disabilities, page 118. 119. 120. Consumer Affairs Department, page 121. Again, these are all very small departments. 122. Page 124, Library. Anyone have any questions pertaining to the library budget? I have a question for Rich on page 125. Other part-time salaries, are those, now where does that fall into play with FTEs?
Majority of those are like library pages and students that work, stack books, et cetera, but nobody that is requiring benefits. So basically, it's just a pool of the younger people that do a lot of the checking of books, stacking of books, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, that's page 125. 126. Page 127. Nothing on page 127, okay. Page 128, Parks and Recreational Services. Page 129. Page 130. Page 131, it's just our debt service. Nothing we can do, nothing we're going to do there. 132. Page 133. Any questions on page 133?
Mr. Chairman,
I-
I'm looking at the group health. The increase in that. What would that be attributed to? Am I looking at the right number here? 85,645.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's up over $2 million.
Well, I was absolutely going to propose a cut to group health insurance. That's just a recommendation from Cook and Company. And if you look from FY15 to FY18, we had a $1 million increase. That's a 6% increase in 4 years. Now we're we're on page 133. So we had a 6% increase. Obviously, our experience was good. And now we go into FY19, and we've got a $2.4 million increase, which is a 13% increase in just 1 year. So I am going to make a proposal to cut group health insurance, even if we give them, if we were to give them an extra $1 million, which is only what they did over the last 4 years, if we gave them $1 million, we could still cut 1.4 million out of there.
And the other thing, Mr. Chairman, if necessary down the road, we can always, if they need some of that money back for some reason, we can put that back.
Well, based on our
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
but I haven't seen anything that indicates that our experience has been that dramatically negatively impacted.
Well,
that
I
would
haven't either,
warrant-
that's why I brought it up.
Yep. Well, thank you very much for that, Councilor Powers. And
Mr.
I
Chairman.
totally agree with that. So,
May I try to help
Mr.
clarify?
Chairman,
go ahead.
I'll wait. Just so everyone's aware, the reason why that increase went up so dramatically is that in fiscal year 18, there was a premium holiday that was given, and pretty much 80% of the health insurance is paid by the municipality, and 20% is paid by the employee. So when you give a holiday, I believe it was a 3-week holiday premium, it's nice that the employees get 3 weeks off of their premium, but the city also gets 3 weeks off, and at 80%, that number was $1 million. So just to start to make sure that we appropriate enough money, we have to add that million back in. So really, that 17.6 million should have been funded at 18.6 million. And then, as Councilor Rizzo said, we do have a third-party cooking company that trends the health insurance inflation, so to speak, and their proposed inflation that we should be budgeting is 8%. So if you added on $1 million to the number appropriated last year, and then you fund that at 8%, that gets you to the 20 million. And I will warn you that we are a self-insured community, so if we shortchange ourselves on the appropriation, we're just shortchanging ourselves in our health insurance trust. So it's a little bit of a slippery slope, and I just want everyone to be aware that if we underfund that budget, we're basically underfunding our own trust account, which will basically require us to come back and fund it in
Even
some
if you
sort of
added that
manner.
$1 million back in, it's still an increase of $1.4 million, correct?
Yeah, and that's unfortunately, Council, the health insurance, I think everybody's aware of the struggles of the health insurance costs and trying to control those, and I think that's part of a larger discussion. We have a pretty rich benefit plan here that I believe the unions have fought for, and that's a pretty complicated thing to address, but I think you do that through collective bargaining. But that number is a true number. I just want you to be aware of that. If you cut that number, you may see me before you again before the end of the fiscal year trying to address that deficit, so I just want you to be aware.
Just questioning why it went up so much, that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Chairman of the Insurance Advisory Committee. I just want the council to know if they cut the health care, then that means the employees' premiums will have to be recalculated, because the city puts in 80 and we put in 20, and it's all based on the number that's in the budget. And the premiums, I believe, have been set for this coming fiscal year.
Why would they have to adjust premiums based
Because
on?
if the city puts in less, the unions have to put in less. That's the city's amount that they owe based on the medical premiums that were decided.
But if you're
based on
only
cooking
spending,
company study.
I gave you the historical data on what we're spending.
Right,
Why
I'm
would you
aware of
ever
that.
base and put the city council in a position raising it $2.4 million in 1 year when it's only gone up 1 million over the last 4 fiscal years?
I'm not saying you shouldn't make the adjustment, I'm just saying the employees' calculation will also
And-
have to be changed.
And
And the money stays in the trust fund. So if there's an excess, we can do another
I
premium
don't,
holiday.
I don't think you need to adjust the premiums. The only thing that would happen is the mayor would have to come back and ask for an additional appropriation. But I don't think you need to go back and readjust premiums for the entire workforce if we cut money out of the group health, out of the group health insurance. And, by the way, a 3-week premium, you said a 3-week premium holiday?
That was what was passed in fiscal year 18.
Right, so we've had premium holidays in the past. I mean, I believe we had one in FY16 or FY FY 15 and 16, I think. So we've had, this isn't the first time we ever had a premium holiday.
No,
And-
I'm not suggesting it isn't. I'm just saying that when you're self-insured for health insurance,
Right.
if you over budget, so to speak, that money goes into the trust account itself, which allows you to then make those recommendations. Now, if you give premium holidays every year, you will start to erode that fund balance. Now, remember, not only do you need the money to pay for the claims as they come in, you're required to keep incurred but not reported expenses. So any health insurance costs that happen in May and June, we have to encumber that money because those bills are coming in. That's usually about 10% of the balance. So I don't want to get too much into it, but being self-insured for health insurance is somewhat of a risky proposal, and I would not recommend fooling around with it too much without a deeper discussion on the overall health insurance trust viability.
Well, I can appreciate that, but it is mind-boggling to me how the premium would only go up $1 million over 4 years, and now you're asking for $2.4 million in just 1 year. It makes no rational sense. I don't care how many ways you spin it or how many ways you put it. It just doesn't make any sense how it could go up 6% in 4 years and go up 13% in 1 year. It just doesn't make any sense.
I can't represent how the money was budgeted in the past, but I will
Right.
say this is a true budget number, and every number in this budget represents true 12-month budgeting. So if there were hedges made against an appropriation, or there was some good luck and claims came in less than proposed, then things work out well. But let me tell you, if we're paying for our own health insurance, so if things go bad, they go bad quickly in health insurance trusts. So again, I'm just want to make everyone aware.
But that would be the same in every year. This is not going to change your revenue stream. You obviously have a revenue stream that's going to fund this, correct?
It will certainly change the revenue stream because the revenue that's being appropriated goes directly into that account. If you reduce that revenue, then less revenue is going to go into the trust.
Well, so you're talking about the amount of premiums that are going in?
Well, again, we base premiums based upon our third-party administrators' analysis on how the trends are going for health insurance. And then they set a rate, just like Chief Gatto said. So let's just, for easy math, if it's $1,000 a month, the city has to pay $800 and the employee has to pay $200. Now, if you short that appropriation and we keep the rates the same, we're going to run out of money because we won't have enough to fund that 800 times 1,000 people times.
It seems to me
what
we're
have you.
actually helping the ratepayer. If they went back and reset the rates and we're only budgeting for, $1 million for less, that's less money that people have to pay in to fund that appropriation, correct?
Right, but if the claims are higher than...
And if the claims are higher, then you come back and you ask for more money. But based on the history, where's the history that dictates that we need to increase this by $2.4 million? I don't see it.
Well, again, we added the first $1 million that was reduced last year to give the premium, and then the 8% is the
Well-
inflationary rate that we're provided by them. So if we want to decide that we don't think 8% is the right rate, we think it's more like 3%, so be it, but our rates are set based upon an 8%
But if
premium.
you look at, okay, last year it was 17.6 million, okay? If you gave a 3-week holiday, I'll even use a month. So let's say it's $1.5 million a month is what our cost is, right? Using those figures. Well, a premium holiday would be 20%, which is what the employees pay, right? So 20% would be $360,000. That would be on a full month. So I don't see where this whole $1 million conversation is even coming in anyway. Sometimes I find, and I'm not saying this is the case with you, but sometimes people come up to that podium, they tell you something that makes no sense, but you're supposed to just believe that it is that way. Like, I'm looking at real numbers, like, it's going up $2.4 million this year, when it's only gone up $1 million in the past 4 fiscal years. How can that make any sense to anybody? I don't know.
Again, at 8, let's call it 17.6 million, if that's rounded up to 18 million, that's $1.5 million a month. So if you give a 3-week premium holiday, that's a little more than $1 million that you can reduce the appropriation, and that's what happened last year.
No, the city would pay its side anyway. It's not a premium.
No, that's not true, Counselor, because
Well, why wouldn't we?
Why wouldn't you? Because you're funding a pool of money in a trust, and it's 80% from the city and 20% from the employee. So if the employee has 3 weeks off of contributing that 20%, then the city has 3 weeks off of contributing that 80%. So that's, I mean, it's if you have a healthy fund balance, you're able to do this. I personally would prefer to just lower the rates for 12 months all around, but some believe that the premium holiday is nice around Christmas time and the holidays to save a little money for the employees. But again, it's, I would just say I think it's very dangerous to cut this appropriation, and I'll leave
I'd
it
like
at
to see
that.
the rates lowered for our employees as well. So, yeah. Well, that, we can go back. Rich, I think this is just one that we're going to disagree on. I totally disagree with it. I think I mean, if you came up and asked for 22 million, are we just supposed to say, okay, 22 million, and just because we're told that's what we should vote on? I just think I think it's excessive. I think it's money that, we don't need to allocate. The budget already went up. You're talking, the budget when it has gone from, where are we? $184 million last year, up to $206 million. I don't know what it's going to be next year. I mean, we got to start to, I think for us as councilors, we need to look at, what we're spending and how we're spending it. And, we're allowing, so far at least it seems, 19 new positions to go in. 19 newly funded positions. And now we're just talking about an expenditure that seems like it's gone way over the top based on the historical numbers that are in front of us. That's all we can use. And I just think, I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, but I just feel like a 13% increase in 1 year as opposed to a 6% increase over 4 years, I don't think that slippery slope is as slippery as we're thinking. And in fact, I would venture to say we could probably still do a premium holiday if we cut $1 million or $1.4 million from that. So, because you're still getting another $1 million.
I believe you're correct when we can agree to disagree, but I would, again, just like to reiterate that this is a true number based upon true head counts, true FTEs, and an inflationary rate of 8%. So, in my opinion, the only reason why you would lower this is because someone would think that the inflationary rate of 8% is a bit high. And I'm not saying that's not an argument that's valid, but these are from third-party experts that come in and tell us what health insurance trends are and such. And believe me, no one was more disappointed than I was to realize that the first $2.4 million had to fund health insurance. So it certainly is, it's not a number we took lightly at all.
Okay. Thank you. Any councilors? Councilor Janino?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a quick point, just so I'm on the same page, because I'm trying to follow the numbers, and I'm a little bit confused myself now. So if I follow this correctly, Mr. Viskey, it's the 17.6 roughly million, plus the 8%, which is about 1.4 million, plus an additional million on top of that, which is the million that it's going up yearly?
Yeah, I would just flip-flop the numbers. You have to add the million first and then apply that 8% because it compounds that way. But correct, you add the $1 million from the premium holiday savings, and then you add the inflationary rate. And again, these numbers, I wish if we had more time, I would love to show you the kind of breakdown of what Cook gives us with every person, what plan they're in, what the rates are, and it basically foots to this number. We didn't tweak this number at all. This is again a true number, and whether someone wanted to give a premium holiday, which we're not suggesting this year, or to kind of hedge the trend that Cook and Company believes insurance rates would go up. But I've had historically $3 million health insurance deficits that I had to do deficit bonds for through the state, and never liked self-insurance plans. They work well sometimes, but this isn't like a premium and they give us a number. If we underfund it, we're just underfunding our own accounts, basically. So that's all.
Understood. I just wanted to make sure I followed the math correctly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Any other councilors like to speak on this at all? I don't know. I know Councilor Powers is, in favor of cutting a certain dollar amount. we can either, we'll take that up at the, as we get through all these pages, how much we want to cut, and we'll agree on something, or nothing, whichever is the case. Okay. Any other questions on page 133? Page 133, any other questions? Page 134? Page 135? Okay. Okay, before we get to page 136, Rich, there's that statistical data before we get to page 136. I just want to run through that with you. So are these new members that are entering the retirement system, and then the new retirees as they, I mean, it seems pretty self-explanatory, but I just want to confirm that before we go.
Yeah, and that number comes right from PARAC, so we get an assessment from PARAC, and that's the amount that we fund for the Budget Council.
Okay, so new members into the retirement system in FY18 were 70?
I don't exactly have that sheet of paper that you're referring to, I'm sorry. Or I may, but not right in
There's
front of me.
a sheet right here before page 136. You don't have that? Okay. Yeah, do you have your page? No, this is, okay, let me hand this to the auditor and see.
Yeah, this is part of that narrative that we handed out as a separate document, so Sandor must have put this together, so new members, 70, new retirees, 26, so a lot of those members would be backfilled. So if someone retires and they backfill, it kind of nets itself out, but I'd have to get back to you on the exact specifics, because Sandor put this together, but what you're
So
saying...
that would just be government, that would just be, that's not school department, correct?
No.
They have their own separate retirement system.
It wouldn't be the teachers. A lot of members of the school department are in part of our retirement system, but the teachers are in the MTRS, so this would be non-teacher school employees and city employees.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on, page 136. Any questions there? I believe we're still slated for 2033 for the time when we're fully funded?
That's correct.
Is that the year?
Yes.
Page, I'm sorry. That was page 136, page 137? And page 138. Any questions or proposed cuts? Any councilors? Councilor Zambudo, did you have a question with respect to inspectional services?
Well, I wanted to make a cut of a position.
Okay, do you have a specific page that you want to send this to? Or you want me to try to get their, let me see, inspectional services,
I'm looking to cut $55,260.
okay, hold on one second. That would be in the Health Inspection Division, page 100 and 102?
That's correct.
Okay, so what's the specific position, Counselor?
Housing inspector,
Housing inspector?
correct.
Okay. Yes, sir.
May I speak, Councilor? That position is absolutely essential for our department, as you know, housing inspector, just to let you know, and councilors know.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would also agree with the director. I mean, right now, we are faced with a very large problem in the city, the magnitude of which I've never seen before with regard to rodents and other situations regarding housing. And I think to cut any inspector down there right now would be taking a step down a very slippery path. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear the motive behind this or the reasoning behind the cut.
Councilor Morabito has a question. Councilor Zambudo?
Well, I think there should be a code of conduct for city employees. That's all I'm going to say about that. And the person holding the position, I don't feel lives up to those standards or has proven that he doesn't live up to those standards, in my opinion. It's only my opinion.
Nick?
Well, as I said, you know, that position is absolutely essential with all the housing problems we have within the city, inspection of housing, certificates of fitness before any rentals, and safe housing. The housing inspector's also on the Safe Housing Committee. So it's definitely an important position. Yes.
The only thing I'll say, and I'm not familiar with the situation with respect to the code of conduct, but clearly,
Sure.
Councilor Zambudo has been a member of the city council for a long time, and
Right.
he has some serious concerns. So I think that's something that maybe you should work with him on.
Yes.
You know, as opposed to having the city council maybe eliminate a position. I think that with him to have those types of concerns pertaining, it sounds like with a specific employee, then I think that needs to be addressed because, there is obviously a code of conduct with respect to, the way that the council is treated, the way the council treats the workforce and so on. So I think that, maybe that you and Councilor Zambudo should have a
I totally
conversation
understand.
about that.
I'm fully aware of the situation. I have addressed the situation. I have talked to Councilor Zambudo, and I believe the mayor has also addressed the situation with the particular employee, and hopefully it won't happen again. And I apologize for our department.
Thank you very much. Is that to your satisfaction, Councilor Zambudo?
It is. I think that obviously the appetite is not to cut the position. It was never my intention to cut that particular position, provided the person's going to do his job in a manner that is conducive with being a city employee. Let's face it. I mean, it's one thing to get a position, and whatever the reason you got that position for, I think that you need to act, you reflect whatever we do on the outside, and myself included, whatever I do on the outside is a reflection in the city of Revere. So I wanted to make a statement, and I think the point is certainly got across, and I'll withdraw my request to eliminate that position because I know how much that position is needed in that department. However, I'll be back here jumping on the dais here if that kind of behavior repeats itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor. Okay, I know we have several other things to talk about, and we're coming up on 5:30. So do any councilors have any specific cuts that they'd like to put before the Ways and Means Subcommittee before the meeting tonight? If you do, I'd like them to be brought forward. If the clerk could call the roll, and then we will put them forward as amending the budget as presented by the mayor. So any proposed cuts? Well, I'd like to propose a few. Actually, I'll reconsider one with respect to the engineering department. That was just a shifted position, so but I absolutely would like to make a cut to the group health insurance. I had originally proposed to cut 1.4 million, which would have still given them a significant increase. I'd be willing to go down to $1 million to cut that account, and I would like the clerk to call the roll on that.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one question?
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, in funding this account, the money will not be spent if the rate does not jump the 8% as predicted, correct? So if we're predicting or getting analysts that it's an 8% increase on top of the $1 million the holiday that you had in the past, if the rates don't increase 8%, the money won't be spent just because it's budgeted there, correct?
Let me try to answer that question. We set the rates internally, so we're self-insured, so we're paying claims.
Correct.
And what the people from Cook & Company do is look at the historical data, and they add in the trends of the health insurance market, and they recommend an amount. And from those recommendations, we have to back into a rate. So our rates are set for fiscal year 19 based upon this funding on the city side, and then obviously payroll withholdings that are programmed in through the payroll department. So I can't speak for sure, but I'm pretty sure that we've already set the rates for the first month because we collected a month in advance. So I believe everybody's June pay is reflecting these new rates. So again, I don't know that we'd have to change the rates again and change all the withholdings, but basically what's going to happen is if you reduce that, I guess in turn we would have to reduce the rates because otherwise we'd run out of money, and then I wouldn't be able to pay our share of health insurance claims, which would bring me back before the council to ask for appropriation. So I guess by cutting this budget, you'd be in turn forcing us to recalculate rates based upon how much funding we have, and then we hope that we're not underfunding the health insurance budget, which will start to deteriorate the fund balance in the trust.
Understood, but what I'm saying is, so if the expenses don't come in at $20 plus million, and they come in at $19 million, that extra 1 point something million would go in, it wouldn't be spent. It would be held in some sort of escrow.
Yeah, well, what we do is we pay this insurance into our trust, and then we pay all the bills out of the trust. So the trust kind of floats the dollars, but if we short that, then obviously, if we're short $1.5 million, it'll erode that trust by $1.5 million. So pay me now, pay me later in some respects.
Thank you.
Well, just as a follow-up to that, it seems to me that, if you've already set the rates, ratepayers, the employees are already paying, then that would create, if we're cutting that number down, and you're not gonna have to go back necessarily. You could create a surplus in that account. Sometimes that happens, correct? You wouldn't have to go back and make any rate adjustment.
It's just that the rates are set based upon the employee contributing a certain amount in the city. So if we cut ours, we would then be funding a disproportionate amount than what collective bargaining agreements say. So we'd have to lower their contribution to the trust as well. Because if they stay at that, let's just say it's $100 and we're supposed to put in $900, and we lower ours to $8, we can't expect the employees to pay more, because then they would pay more than their 20% share. So there would have to be some recalculations if we were to adjust our rates.
So in a year, I mean, if you want to use that logic, what happens if it turns into $22 million you paid out in claims? What do you do at that point?
Then if our health insurance trust balance at June 30th, 2018 was $5 million, then you'd expect to see it only at $3 million in the following year.
Right, but that to me would not have any impact on the rate, on the people paying premiums.
Well, it would have an impact on the future year because it kind of perpetuates itself. So
Right, so the future year, like the taxpayers do, like we set a tax rate based on the city's budget. I mean, the taxpayers pay X in taxes this year. Next year, they might, I mean, there could be a year they pay less, because, if the budget worked that way. Of course, it hasn't, but I don't see the...
I don't understand the apples to apples comparison, but I just know that if
Mr.
if
Chairman,
$20
can I
million
clarify this, please? We have the trust fund, and the medical payments are decided at the beginning of the year. And I'm not saying you shouldn't make the cut. All I am saying is whatever you cut, the employees' rates will go down the same. And I'm not sure what's going on here, but if we budgeted a premium holiday, that's wrong. We should not be budgeting a premium holiday. A premium holiday is when the claims come in better than expected.
Right.
And over 2 or 3 years, we build up money in the trust fund, and then we have so much money in there, we return it back to the city and the employees.
Right.
But we should not be pre-budgeting a premium holiday, because the employees' insurance is going up, not the same as the cities, but our share is going up also.
Right.
And as the chairman, if that's what's taking place, and this has never happened before, I disagree with it, and we should only be going up 8% based on last year's claims.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, I think the claims were the claims. They're not correlated with one another. We pay into a trust, and the claims are paid out of that trust, and whether the claims went up and down are really reflected in the balance of the health insurance trust, not the appropriations that are set to
What's your
pay the
balance in
extra-
the health insurance trust right now?
I think it was $5 million, but again, we have 2 more months' worth of claims to book, so $5 million, about $1.5 million of that would be incurred but not reported, so it's $3.5 million. So again, $3.5 million cushion on a $23-24 million a year operation for health insurance is not exactly the flushest amount, in my opinion.
I think, again, given these statistics, look, council doesn't have to, this isn't, I'm giving you my opinion, okay? This council does not want to go along with it. I'm telling you how I feel about it. It's not, I mean, at the end of it, I'm only doing my job as one councilor. Somebody disagrees with it, vote it down. Next year, let it go to 23 million. Whatever this council thinks they want to do. I personally think it's way over budgeted, given that I'm looking at the historical numbers of this account. And for it to only go up $1 million in 4 years and to go up $2.4 million in 1 year alone, I don't care how many premium holidays you're talking about, that just seems way over budgeting for me. Now, I understand that there's, some new employees and that might factor in, but still, that will still be a $1.4 million increase if we cut $1 million out of it. And that's my proposal. My proposal is $1 million, and if you want to call the roll, anybody that does not want to support it, I'm okay with it. I'm just telling you, this is my proposal. So if you want to vote for it, and you don't, it's up to you. Roll call, please.
Shall the city council reduce the group health appropriation by $1 million? Councilor Guanasso.
No.
No. Councilor Morbido.
No.
No. Councilor Patch.
No.
No. Councilor Rotundo is absent. Council President Janino. No. And Chairman Rizzo.
Yes.
Yes, there's not a favorable recommendation for that cut to the full city council.
Okay. The next cut I'd like to propose, which is Section 4, page 6. No, wait a minute, I'm sorry. My bad there. So, Section 4, page 6. I'm sorry. Section 4, page 2. I'd like to further cut outside legal services. We've got outside legal services budgeted in several different places, and I'd like to cut it. I'd like to cut the outside legal services to $50,000. Section 4, page 2. $50,000. Roll call, please.
Shall the city council reduce the outside legal services on page IV-2 in the amount of $50,000? Councilor Guanasso.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido.
No.
No. Councilor Patch.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Rotundo is absent. Counselor Janino?
No.
No. And Chairman Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes, that cut will be forwarded to the full city council.
Okay, if there's no further cuts, I want to thank the council and the department heads for their attention here tonight. We can take a 2-minute recess. I know we have CDM Smith and some loan orders to discuss. It'll give time for our department heads to be on their way. So I want to thank the council for their attention. And again, to our department heads, thank you very much. 2-minute recess.